Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tigers Daily in partnership with the Fan Arch Network. Happy Sunday, August the 2nd, 2026. Before we get started, for those of you, we'd like to invite you that haven't done it yet to subscribe to our channel here on Tigers Daily. We go through all things Tigers, the good, the bad, everything in between, the latest rumors, who's on the hot seat, all of that and more. We take a look at what happened the day before on the diamond and a look ahead of what's coming up for the Tigers. For those of you that have subscribed, I say thank you very much. This has been so much fun. Episode 32 here about to start, and the response has been great. So, again, if you haven't done it yet, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, which is Tigers Daily. All right, happy Sunday. Well, it could be for Tarik Skubal at about midnight last night or early this morning, whatever you want to call it. The news came down. It's official. Tarik Skubal is now a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. You know, it's one of those things where you try to brace yourself. You know it's coming. But still, when it happens, it kind of stings. And I'd be lying to say if it doesn't hurt a little bit, losing a two-time defending Cy Young Award winner in Tarik Skubal, but it was inevitable. Now, there's no right or wrong answer from you, the viewer. Obviously, everybody's going to have an opinion on this. And I can't wait to see the comments at the end of the show here and during the show, whatever. We're going to go over all of them tomorrow. So, again, what is your view? What is your thought on the trade for Skubal going to the Dodgers? Did they get enough? Did they satisfy you? Or whatever? Well, that with the Tigers winning yesterday, now they're just 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. The deficit is 5 in the division. Do you think they still have a shot? Well, it's obviously time will tell, but it still stings when you lose your number one ace, that being Tarik Skubal, as now he's a member of the Dodgers. They got 3 prospects in return. Now they've got a starter that potentially could be in the rotation for the Tigers by the end of the week, River Ray. He had a 1.33 ERA and 4 starts with the San Diego Padres before he got dealt to the Dodgers, and he's coming off Tommy John surgery, and he had some starts in rehab. He had a little hamstring issue, but he's off of that now. He was scheduled to start yesterday for the Dodgers, and obviously he got pulled from that start because it looked like they're going to trade him to Detroit, and they indeed did. So he's one of the prospects. He's the number 7 prospect in the Dodgers system. The number 5 prospect that's going to the Tigers is Zahir Hope. Now, he's a stick. I think you could see him potentially in right field for the Tigers. If not next year, who knows? Maybe he might be a September call-up or towards the end of August. Hope's got some stick. He's got some power in his bat. He's got 23 home runs in the Double-A level for the Dodgers. Well, now I could say for the Tigers. He'll start out in Erie, but could potentially be in Toledo, and who knows? He could be wearing a Detroit uniform by the end of the year. Getting back to River Ryan, again, he's got a fastball that touches 100. So he can throw the ball. He's 27. So, again, these are prospects, right? Brady Smith's the other one. I had an opportunity to see him a week ago Saturday pitching for the Single-A, the High A team out of Midland, Michigan, the Great Lakes Loons. He got roughed up a little bit against the Lugnuts. He gave up 7 runs in 4 innings. That's not too encouraging, but a season-long ERA is about 3.88. So if you lump those 7 runs in that he gave up to Lansing a week ago, I know the jury's out on him, obviously. He's one that if he goes through the pipeline, he wouldn't be in Detroit till probably 2029. So that's what we're getting back for the Tigers. A lot of you I know aren't going to be happy with it. Some will. I'm going to hold out hope, no pun intended. I think, you got to look at what was realistic. Now, again, I'm going to be the first to admit I got sucked in to what everybody was saying, all the quote-unquote pundits, the experts saying that Detroit could get potentially a starter like Sheehan or maybe from the Brewers a Logan Henderson. But it was obvious that the Brewers were unwilling to part with him or some of their top prospects. So Detroit turned to the Dodgers, who had been interested since the word go. The Dodgers are going to be stacked. There's no doubt about it. An interesting fact on this, the Dodgers will be at Comerica August 28th, 29th, and 30th. That's going to be must-see TV. I'm sure the ticket prices, especially once we find out what day that Skubal pitches, those ticket prices are going to go through the roof. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. So, again, the trade is made. The trade is complete. Tarik Skubal now is an LA Dodger. We'll see when he starts for the Dodgers. He was penciled in to start for the Tigers on Wednesday against the Mariners, so we'll see if he's a mid-week starter for the Dodgers. He's going to be their ace now. He's going to be their number one starter. But boy, do they got a loaded rotation, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. Well, the Tigers, again, they're 2.5 games out now, so they're still in the race. Let's see what else happens for the Tigers, especially now as they go for the sweep. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. So, again, obviously the question is, do you think Scott Harris got enough? That's going to be the $64,000 question, the $300 million question, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely going to be in the thoughts and minds of everybody in Tigers Nation here this morning and from beyond. And, did they give up on the season? That's the other question. I mean, they're 2.5 games out of a playoff spot. Anybody could win. There's so many different ways to look at it. Realistically, do you honestly think the Tigers were going to get Skubal back next year? Would he have walked and all you've got was a compensatory first-round draft pick? That's the reason why, as much as now, again, I don't want the Tigers to play for the future. I wanted them to win now. I get it. But there's the realistic side that you had to look at and say, well, what are we going to get in return if he walks? How realistic was it going to be that Skubal was going to sign, a $300 to $350 million contract? You've got Casey Mize, who could potentially be moved as well here in the coming hours. We still have a day and a half before the deadline. So those are the main questions. And again, you've got the lockout looming. And so I don't know. I mean, your comments, I can't wait to see them. Nobody's going to be right. Nobody's going to be wrong. It's just going to be such great banter for us back and forth in the coming days. So obviously, Detroit has to take the next step, and that's going to move on. I wonder what it was like in the clubhouse yesterday afternoon. Mize and Skubal were both in the dugout, and then they left after the second inning. So you knew something was brewing. And when you listen to Tarik Skubal after the game, in his press conference or whatever you want to call it, he paused for about 15 seconds, and then you could tell he was excited. And why wouldn't he be? He's going to a World Series contender, a legit contender, that with a stacked lineup, and there you go. And so Tarik Skubal's now a Dodger. And here's another point. Everybody's going to complain about the Dodgers maybe buying another World Series. And you know what? That's a legitimate argument. Is it good for baseball? I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if it is or not. We're going to find out. I'll tell you one thing. All that's going to do is strengthen the owner's side when it comes to talking about the lockout, or talking about a salary cap in baseball when the CBA expires in 2026. I think a lot of these other owners are going to if they weren't unified on it, a lot of them are going to be now. So some points, just some things to think about with this trade. On the field, I think Detroit will get a starter in Ryan by the end of the week, if not the first of next week, which will help Detroit, obviously, with filling the void with Skubal. So the big trade has happened. Tarik Skubal's going to the Dodgers. Zaire Hope, 23 home runs. He had a 293 batting average. We'll talk more about that in our last segment. So that begs the next question. Who's next? Is Casey Mize going to be the next domino to fall for the Tigers? Now, he was scratched. Obviously, we all know he was scratched from his start on Friday. Now, rumor has it he might pitch Tuesday against the Mariners. I don't know. Is that why they did it? Is he going to be on the block? Well, we all know what we could really use here in Tiger Town if they do trade Mize, and that's bullpen help. Yesterday's game, again, we'll talk about that in a few moments, as the bullpen again scuffled. They tried to give that one away yesterday against the Athletics. Detroit did hang on, but boy, oh boy, that Oh, but now is Casey Mize is he on the trading block? That's the next question. What about Gleyber Torres? Now Detroit, now they're pretty well stocked in the middle of the infield. They got Max Clark, who, wow, what a debut he's had, right? He's going to play every day, probably at center field now. So Detroit still has Hao-Yu Lee. They've got weapons now in the infield. Does that make Gleyber Torres expendable? Can they potentially trade him for some relief help? Again, Casey Mize. Maybe they could package the two. Who knows what's going on in that clubhouse right now? Who knows if Scott Harris is getting any sleep right now for the Tigers? Wheeling and dealing. It's just a guess. We're all just guessing, right? We're not in the clubhouse. We're not in the offices right now. We don't know what's going on for the Tigers. It's just speculation. And again, we all thought that Skubal might be able to get a quote-unquote major league roster pitcher, starter, or whatever. They didn't get that. So what's going through the minds right now of you? Do you think Casey Mize is next? I think he might be. But I think, obviously, if I were the GM, and my wish list right now would be to get some type of a closer, some type of reliever that can eat up some innings. They need it right now. The Tigers desperately need it. So, again, just conjecture, just food for thought, whatever you want to call it. I don't think the Tigers are done dealing yet. Casey Mize is next, I believe. Gleyber Torres. Kenley Jansen, after what he did last night, I don't know if his trade stock's gone up, gone down. He's like a Weeble. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. He tried his best, right? So we'll see if he's let's see if he's on the market. Finnegan, I would love to see him get rid of Finnegan. But after his last two performances, who are we going to get for him? What are you going to get for him? Maybe a single A prospect? Is that worth it? One thing, we'll talk about that as well. So again, Finnegan's got $9.5 million left. He's got another year left on his contract, 2027. So that's going to be, I think, something that is going to scare teams away. I think we're stuck with Finnegan. We might ultimately have to just DFA him or whatever. Just cut bait, cut our losses with Finnegan. He just doesn't have it right now for the Tigers. One thing to keep in mind before we talk about last night's game and take a look ahead at today's game. Jackson Jobe, his rehab assignment, he got pushed down to West Michigan for today. He was originally supposed to start Toledo, but with the weather looking like it's going to be very dicey in Toledo again today, they pushed it over to West Michigan. That's the beauty of having two minor league ball clubs or ballparks within a few hours of each other. So he's going to start in West Michigan. The only thing you can read into that is that it's because the weather is going to be dicey in Toledo, but in West Michigan it looks like it's going to be dry. So Jackson Jobe's going to make a scheduled start today. And then who knows after that? Maybe he gets called up a little bit later on in the week for the Tigers to help fill the void of Tarik Skubal and potentially Casey Mize with the Tigers. All right, yesterday's game. How about it? Supermax. Max Clark with his first home run. Kevin McGonigal led off the game with his 11th home run. So the Wonderkins helped lead the Tigers to an 8-6 win over the Athletics yesterday. They took game 2 of the 3-game set. They're going to look for the sweep here this afternoon in Sacramento against the A's. Montero is going to be on the bump. But the Tigers, again, jumped out to a big lead. It was kind of scary at first. Again, Framber Valdez scuffled a little bit in the beginning, 29 pitches in the opening inning, but you know what? He settled down. He looked good. He looked better. He gave up a couple of runs, obviously, but he was able to hold the damage down. The 5th inning, after giving up a couple of runs, looked very, very strong. He got the side out in order, got through. But then Kyle Finnegan came in, and his second rough start in a row. He only lasted 1/3 of an inning for the Tigers, and yeah, that's got to make you nervous. That's got to make A.J. Hinch nervous. That's got to kind of up the ante a little bit maybe for Scott Harris here at the trade deadline. Finnegan did nothing, again, for the Tigers. Second straight outing, and as we mentioned, if they're looking to deal him, the chances of him going anywhere have pretty much dissipated because he's on the hook. The Tigers are on the hook for $9.5 million next year on that contract for Finnegan. The only way they're going to deal him is if they pay a good portion of that salary next year. So I don't know what the story is with Finnegan. He's kind of looking like Will Vest was out there. So that's another option that I don't know if he's worth going to for the Tigers. But nonetheless, they hung on. He gave up the 3 runs. And then, of course, how about Kenley Jensen in the 9th inning? He gave up the run, and then the tying run was at the plate with 2 outs. Got the deep fly ball to get out of the inning. But what was up, though, with Jensen at the end of the game? Now, I don't blame Sacramento for doing what you're doing. It's 8-5. I get it. They had a runner on third with 1 out, and they effectively pulled off the suicide squeeze to make it 8-6. So now you got the tying run at the plate. It was a perfect plan for the Athletics. If Detroit would have done that last week when they had that suicide squeeze opportunity, they'd have tied the game against the Royals. But they couldn't execute it. I love the play. Kylie Jensen having a problem with it afterwards and barking at the runner at first base. If you don't like it, get the guy out. I thought it was a perfect game plan by the Athletics. So Jensen, I don't know what his problem was. Strike the guy out. Don't get in that position. So we've got that powder keg as a closer right now. Now, granted, he got the save, his 13th save of the year. The Tigers won 8-6. So with the win, again, the Tigers gain a game on everybody else in the wild card standings and in the American League Central. We'll go over that here in a moment, all the standings here on this Sunday. So the Tigers find a way to win. They come out to the big lead, and they hang on for dear life. A big win for the Tigers. They've taken now the first 2 on this West Coast swing. These are games they have to have. There's no margin for error right now for the Tigers. We talked about it before the West Coast swing started. For the Tigers to get to 85 and 77, the Tigers had to go 34-19 in their final 53 games. Well, they've won the first 2. So to get to 85 wins now, they got to go 32-19 from here on out. Now, if they want to get to 83 wins, that's a little different story now. They can go 30-21. I guess my question to you as we slide into the numbers portion of the show today, what is it going to take for the Tigers to get that last wild card spot? We'll talk winning the division. I think they're going to have to get to 87 wins, and that might be a tall order. There's still 5 games out. Who knows? They could get hot. And who knows? Maybe 85 wins will win the division. But realistically, for the Tigers to get a playoff spot, what do you think it's going to take? Is it going to take 85 wins? Is 83 wins enough in this very, very mediocre American League? If they do that, again, if they get to 83 wins, they got to go 30-21 from here on out. Now that's a record that they had. They played 9 games over 500 after June 1st through July. So, I mean, it's attainable. Now, obviously, you're missing your ace as he got dealt away, but those are the numbers that we're looking at for the Tigers to potentially get into the playoffs. And I know it might be a pipe dream. So let's take a look at the Major League standings now. First of all, the regular standings, Tampa Bay, a 3.5-game lead over the Yankees, and 6 over the Red Sox. In the Central, the White Sox with a 3-game lead over the Twins and 3 over the Guardians. Both them tied at 500, 56 up, 56 down. And the Tigers now 5.5 games out of first place in the American League Central. All right, and then in the West, the Houston Astros. Now they've got themselves a 1.5-game lead over the Texas Rangers, as the Astros now have won 5 straight. And the Seattle Mariners, the next opponent for the Tigers, they're 3 games out. In the National League, real quick, the Braves, their lead now over the Phillies is at 8, 9.5 over the Marlins. They all won last night. The Brewers, their lead over the Cubs is now at 6.5 games, if I can see that right. Yes, indeed it is. And finally, in the West, the Dodgers, their lead is down to 10 games over the Diamondbacks, as the Dodgers have lost a couple of straight. All right, and then, again, we talked about it. The wild card. The Tigers now in the wild card race in the American League. They are now 2.5 games out of that final wild card spot. The Twins and the Guardians are tied for that spot. The Rangers are a half game out, and they're a game under 500. Then you got the Orioles, a game ahead of the Tigers. The Mariners are a half a game ahead of the Tigers. So obviously there's a logjam. Detroit's got to hop over 5 teams to get that spot, but they're all right there. It's doable. It's doable. So again, that raises the question. Some of you are going to ask, why did Detroit deal Skubal if they have a shot to get into the playoffs? Well, we've already gone through that. Again, I'm going to look for your comments. I want to see what you think of it, obviously. So, all right, and finally, in the numbers portion of the show, again, taking a look at what Detroit's got in return for the trade for Skubal. Zaire Hope, he's got a .293 batting average, 23 home runs, OPS of about 800. So, I mean, he's one. I'm excited for him. I'm excited to see what he can do in a Tigers uniform. Again, is it realistic to see him in Detroit in 2026? No, I don't think so. More than likely, he'll probably start in 27 in the Tigers, in the Tigers outfield. It'll be good to slot him into right field with his bat. I'm excited to see what he can bring to the Tigers, either at the end of the year this year or next year. River Ryan, I think that he's going to be the first one called up by Detroit again. More than likely, it'll be here in the next week or so, as he was scratched from his scheduled start for AAA in Albuquerque for the Dodgers. So we'll keep an eye on that. He could potentially be there in the rotation by the end of the week. He's got a fastball that touches 100. He's a flamethrower, so that'll be good to see for the Tigers. We'll see what kind of return we get out of him. And Brady Smith, he had a rough start, like I mentioned. The last I had an opportunity to watch him in Lansing when they played the Lugnuts, and he got roughed up pretty good by the Lugnuts, giving up, I think, 7 runs in 4 innings. But he's overall on the year, including that outing, he's at an ERA of 3.88. So some of the numbers to look at, and again, the Tigers, the main number, they're 5 games under 500, 2.5 games out of a wild card. And again, to get to 85 and 77, they've got to go 32 and 19 the rest of the way out. To get to 83 and 79, they got to go 30 and 21 if they want to get into a playoff spot. All right, let's take a quick look at some of the comments here from yesterday. And again, the reaction yesterday, I got to thank everybody for the response yesterday. The viewership was fantastic. A lot of comments, and again, a lot of these comments were based before the trade. So, a lot of folks saying again that, as much as they'd hate to see Skubal go, Detroit's got to get something in return for him. Skubal is not, Frank Stanton Jr. thinks that Skubal was not being used properly by A.J. Hinch. He's a stud. Let him pitch if that's what you're paying him to do. I get it. Here's one. Congratulations to Mako Dakota. If you took his advice, Tigers -1.5, you were winners last night. How about that? 8-6. So maybe we should get him on for some of Presley's parlays, some of our other shows that I do. Shareman99, I would sign Max to the same exact contract as Kevin McGonigal. It would solidify the Tigers for the next 8 years. And T-Will4554 commented on that. What a debut, man. He was so close to going yard in his first game. And again, did you see that Max bomb yesterday? Just like he just flicked his wrist, gulped that one over the right field wall. His first home run for the Tigers. How can you not be excited about Max Clark alongside with Kevin McGonigal, the Wonderkins for the Tigers? I mean, it's definitely an exciting time. Now, Michael McCusker, 7265, trading Torres to Boston would be a good move. Detroit doesn't play Boston anymore. They play a lot of teams that we need to pass, both including Cleveland and the Chicago White Sox. Now, I know the Red Sox are in the market for a shortstop, and that I know the talk about him going to Boston heated up a little bit, especially yesterday and Friday. But do they have, Torres doesn't play shortstop. I'm sure he could get used to it, but obviously his main position is at second base, but I'm sure they could do something with that. And again, Richard Leclerc already, he commented on the trade. In no surprise category, Skubal to the Dodgers for Hope, Ryan, and Brady Smith. He was on it last night, commenting on it already. So we're going to see what everybody else thinks afterwards. So, Dirty Mike, Michigan. If they keep Skubal, it's a historic fumble. And Worthbag said, would set this franchise back 10 years if they let a two-time Cy Young Award winner walk for nothing. And I think that's the way you got to look at it, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, if he walked at the end of the year, all they would get would be a compensatory draft pick, and you don't even know if that's a first or a fourth-round pick. It just depends on the payroll. So that's the way I'm looking at it, ultimately. If it's right or wrong, who knows? Who's to judge? If you're looking to grade the trade, I would grade it incomplete because we don't know what these guys are going to do. Right now, I would say the Dodgers get an A because he's going to potentially put them back in the World Series and maybe a third straight World Series. The Tigers aren't out of the playoffs yet, and we'll see if any of these guys can contribute next year or this year, but more than likely it'll be next year after the lockout. And Josh moved 53-27. The Tigers are going to really upgrade their team with a haul they're going to get from the Dodgers. A Kruk 02 as a Tigers fan, that would be great. But what did we get for Verlander? Not much. So, again, it's all a wait-and-see attitude right now with this trade. And finally, here's an interesting one. Reversion to the mean, 61-29. Best part about Detroit sports is the fan watching. So many wound up so tight and can't find the entertainment in the teams being better in recent years, and especially the ones that punched in the clock every morning. But they are all much better GMs. Well, again, that's all part of being a fan, right? You have your opinions. And we all, obviously in a perfect world, we would have liked Skubal to get 3 starters back from the Dodgers, and we knew that wasn't going to happen. So everybody's entitled to their opinions. That's why we're here. So speaking of that, as we close, 2 questions for you. Obviously the first one, do you think Detroit got enough for Skubal? What is your impression? What's your grade on the trade? And second, do you think now they have what it takes to get to either 85 or 83 wins to potentially get back in the playoffs for a third straight year? Can't wait to see the comments. We're going to go through them all tomorrow. We're going to set aside a lot of time to read the comments as well. The trade deadline is less than 2 days away, a day and a half away. What's going to be on tap next for the Tigers? So many questions still left to be answered for the Tigers. But the main domino has fell. Tarik Skubal, now an LA Dodger. All right, that's going to do it again for another edition of Tigers Daily. I want to thank everybody who's taken time out to be with us on your iPhones, on your computers, on whatever. However you watch us around the world here on Tigers Daily. Until tomorrow, Captain Lou saying keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. So long.